So as you guys can tell, I haven't been up here 5 minutes, and you can imagine I got a lot of spankings as a kid. My mom will tell you that I got more spankings than the other 3 siblings combined. My dad could whip his belt off in seconds, sometimes before the naughty even happened. And in our house, he was known as the fastest belt in the West. One thing I prayed for as a kid, Lord, please allow the friction of that belt going through those belt loops to start him on fire. I thought if I did something wrong and he whipped that belt off, he'd start smoldering and then pretty soon full on flames. And I could stop, drop, and roll him. I could slam him to the ground. I could stomp that fire out. When I was done, I could grab his crispy little head in my hands. I could gaze into his eyes and say, Dad, I know you don't understand this right now, but that hurt me more than it hurt you. The kids hear that stuff now anymore? I don't think they probably do. And I never lied to my kids when it came to that. It never hurt me more than it hurt them. And my dad really didn't say that, but my mom, she would say, I wish you kids wouldn't do this naughty stuff. I hate to have to do that to you. So she would tell us it hurt her more than it hurt us. And sometimes she was right. But my mom would wash our mouth out with soap and then feel guilty an hour later and make me a milkshake. I had to decide every day how bad I wanted a milkshake. I'm telling you, if I wasn't careful, I could have cussed my way right into diabetes. And don't get me started on spit wads. Oh, man. You got a really good, juicy one going. You hit your buddy in the temple or the eyeball just right, you could knock him out of his chair. I was in detention for spitting a spit wad. And I got to thinking, if I could get a spit wad to stick to the chalkboard during detention, that's some bragging rights right there. I was a slow learner. So I put that paper in my mouth. I got her all ready. I put that straw up to my mouth and I let her fly. You know, the cool thing about back then is there weren't cameras like there are today. They're everywhere. But, you know, they didn't need cameras back then because the teacher saw everything. Well, I let her fly, and Mrs. Ward, the detention teacher, says, Chad, what are you doing? And I said, Kimmy did it. There was only 2 of us in the detention. And she says, you're an idiot. That's what the teachers could call you idiots back then. She says, you're an idiot. That's my daughter. And she's waiting for me to be done with you so we can go home. She looked a little bit too much like a goody two-shoe to be in detention. And that's when I had to learn to start reading the room. As you can tell, something is wrong with me, and I've embraced it. I'm okay with it. And I've also had a really poor memory my whole life. My wife's had a good memory, and now that we're getting older, she's starting to misplace it a little bit more, and she misses it. She's like, I hate that I can't remember. I'm like, welcome to the club. It's not bothering me a bit. When I was a kid, I could be on the playground with my friends, and I could be telling them a story. I mean, a good story. Have them on the ropes of anticipation, sneeze, and forget what I was talking about. They would say, you're an idiot. You and Billy were down by the river, and they'd get me back on track. Well, now the nice thing is my friends' minds are finally catching up with my mind, and now when I sneeze, none of us remember what I was talking about. Another thing about getting older, now when I sneeze, sometimes I didn't realize I needed to fart. You ever do that? Oops, a daisies, you know? I'm not looking forward to that day. It's like, oops, daisies, I'll be back. But I know it's coming. I know it's coming. So So I messed this up at a show not too long ago, and I says, now that my friends' minds are finally catching up with my mind, now when I fart, nobody remembers what we were talking about. You don't recover from that. I'm telling you, right now, those people forever are gonna think that my farts cause memory loss. The older I get, I'm getting to where I can't see. Man, I was getting ready the other day in the mirror, and the light hit my face just right, and there was 3 hairs an inch long growing out of my ear. I plucked those babies, and I'm thinking, oh, good night. I know they didn't grow last night. So they've been waving around, and I got to thinking about this. I owe some of you old guys an apology, because I was thinking you no longer cared about your appearance. You just can't see it. And I have a daughter that's a teenage daughter that doesn't need glasses. So I brought her in. I says, man, you got to start watching out for Mom and I. I mean, this is a tough time in our lives to get to this age. And I said, I told her what happened. And I says, can you just do a once over on me to see if I missed anything? That was a big mistake. Like 20 minutes later, now my daughter thinks she's a comedian. And she's pointing out all the things, hurting my feelings. I'm in therapy now twice a week because my daughter. And daughters, teenage daughters don't give a lot of compliments. I don't know if you have those, but they don't. So you better hang on to them when they give them to you. After one of the shows, she had some friends at one of the shows, and she came up afterwards and she says, Dad, we really enjoyed this. You did a great job. So I didn't believe her. I just opened up my phone and I looked up an Amazon cart to make sure she didn't fill it full of stuff. And I'm like, I just wanted to make sure it was empty. I said, did Mom promise you a pair of shoes? She said, no, we really enjoyed that. Oh, I should have dated it. I should have chiseled that one in rock. But you know what I stand up here insecure about? Is I was getting ready for a photo shoot, and I come out of the dressing room wearing the clothes that my wife and my daughter picked out for me, because I'm not the cool guy. They told me. So I come out and I said, hey, Sage, how does this look? And she says, it looks great, but you need to tape down your chest buttons. I'm like, good night. I'm not taping down nothing. She says they're sticking out. I know they're sticking out. But I'm not taping down my chest buttons. Yeah, and that's what's insecurity. Now I know where you guys' eyes are. My eyes are up here. Yeah, it's horrible. Yeah, but that's what they do. And I use the word chest buttons because I didn't want to use the words that my potty mouth little teenage daughter used that apparently she learned in anatomy class in high school. Thought that was appropriate. I'm like, Sage, good night. I was at Walmart the other day. I come out and I lost my mind and I lost my vehicle. I kid you not, I'm pushing the button, I'm wandering. Only thing that kind of comforted me is there was some other idiot in the parking lot because his truck was flashing too. So I kept walking by, just clicking, going, good night. And I thought, well, I'm going to have to call my wife. And this isn't good because I don't want to give her the satisfaction to call me an idiot again. And then I realized that other idiot in the parking lot, that was me because I'd bought a different truck. I wish I was lying to you about that, but it was true. I was pounding the pavement out there. I had a dark gray truck, now a white truck. It can throw a fella off. But I'm thankful that other people are like that. We've got some people back home that are my parents' age, and they ended up going to dinner to Old Chicago. Do you have Old Chicago here? Yes. They went to Old Chicago in 2 vehicles, and they came home in 1. They opened up their garage door, and somebody had stolen their high-dollar BMW. And they called the police. And they looked at all the camera footage, and they're like, I don't know how they did it, but we don't know how it was missing. Yeah, they blasted it all over Facebook. Yeah. 4 days later, they realized what they did, and they went and picked up their car in the parking lot at the old Chicago. And I'm baffled a little bit because I'm thinking, we live in a town of 30,000. It's a $100,000 car that was reported stolen, and it sat in the parking lot at Old Chicago for 4 days. For that, I've been married for 29 years. Oh, it's not all that good for her. I mean, there's been some tough times. Have you ever been sitting there on a Saturday watching TV and you heard the phone ring and your wife answers it and says, oh, we would love to see you. See you in about an hour? That will ruin a weekend. Well, and have you ever joined a conversation that you didn't know you were part of? So I'm sitting there watching TV. We'd been married a couple years. I was dumb and young, right? And so my wife is staring me down, cleaning the house up, picking it up, looking at me. Finally, she goes, are you just going to sit there? I didn't even know that I wasn't supposed to sit here. But now that I'm older and a lot more mature, I'm older. Now I just... when I hear those dreaded words, we would love to see you, I go out into the garage, I grab my tool belt, I come in, I relay some linoleum, I do some touch-up painting, recalk the tub, change those light bulbs that she's been mentioning a few hundred times. My wife has answered the door the same way our entire marriage. Come on in, please excuse the mess. I don't let her get away with it. I don't. I'm just like, the mess, this is the cleanest this house has been since the last time we had people over. And I'm a little irked, to be honest with you, because I just finished 6 months worth of honeydews in the last 45 minutes and like no credit. So one night my wife and I were rolling around in bed and, oh crap, G-rated, get your mind out of the gutter. I messed that one up. I don't know if I'm going to recover from this one. Hey, she's like, oh, good night. Yeah. One night my wife was asleep and I was rolling around in bed, you perverts. And I ended up face to face with my wife and I smelled something. And it was like morning breath, but like worse. And I'm thinking, good night, what did you eat? And then I'm thinking, well, I ate the same thing. So I did the old check. It was her. And I know that my wife would not appreciate her breath smelling like that. And being the loving and caring husband that I am, her mouth was open up just far enough to sneak in a Tic Tac. I know all you ladies are going, that is a lucky, lucky woman. Well, she wasn't asleep near as much as I thought she was. And she woke up on the fight. And her language wasn't rated R, but I'm pretty sure that if I had the lights on, her looks would have been. Has anybody ever bought something without permission? There you go. And I know some of you guys are like, you did, you little liar. Well, one time I showed up to the house with a Mustang 5.0. I mean, it was the car that I wanted in high school, and I could finally do it. And she come out, and she wasn't as enthusiastic. She didn't appreciate it, none. And I tried to convince her that I had some old cassette tapes with some of my sermons and some of my comedy shows on them, and we no longer had a cassette tape player. The Mustang has a cassette tape player, and I can listen to some of my old stuff. I know. And then, yeah, I know, it's lucky. And then, how many people have a dog? man. I am not an animal lover. I'm just letting you know. So we have a dog and a cat, but they're my wife's dog. And have you ever tried to convince your wife that you and her dog, the dog that she is so excited, gets on, that love just comes, it's unconditional love. She talks to the dog. She leaves the room, she comes back, the dog's as excited as she is. That dog and you've been talking, and that dog would like a nicer boat to ride around on this summer at the lake. Am I the only one? Man, I'm making you fellas look a lot better tonight, aren't I? You're welcome. Well, I can tell you, I've heard it 1,000 times that it's better to ask for forgiveness than it is permission, and you guys are a bunch of liars. She'll forgive me, but I can tell you, I can always tell when it's forced. Yeah? Like, are you still mad about that Mustang? No, I'm not mad about that Mustang. Well, you should tell your face. And that's not the right thing to tell her either. I can't stand grumpy people. When I was younger, and my truck wouldn't start every time, and so I knew the battery's getting weak. But it was back before cell phones, and so I was thinking, man, I can't just call my dad. And I'm not a mechanic, promise. My wife will contest that. But so I go into this auto parts store, and you remember when the old catalog was chained to the shelf? And you'd look up what battery you needed, and the chain was always too short, so you would look it up, and you'd be like, okay, those two, and then you'd have to kind of do one of these things. Well, there was 2 batteries that it recommended. One of them was half the size of the other, but I'm an idiot kid. I'm going, that doesn't even make sense to me, but that's what it says. Now that I'm older, I realized it was in the wrong space, but back then I was more fit, and so I grabbed both those batteries and I brought them up to the counter, sat them down there. There was an old guy behind the counter looking up parts in the store. And I was thinking about this the other day. I bet that guy was my age. But this old guy was there, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't know what I'm doing. And I told him the whole story. I've looked it up like 5 times, and these are the 2 batteries. Can you explain to me why there's 2 different sizes and why the smaller one is twice as much as the big one? This guy says, I don't know, I'll play your silly little game. Why is it? I wanted to throat punch that guy, but I didn't. And I started to leave. And I'm like, because I was offended easily back then. And I was like, man, I'm not putting up this. That old guy says, hey, you need to put these batteries back. I'm like, I'm going to shove those batteries right in. Okay. And I say, God made me a little different. And I was like 2 blocks away. Luckily, my truck started. And I'm 2 blocks away, and I get to thinking, you'll think I'll play your silly little game. And I thought, that is the best thing I've ever heard in my life. I could have used it my whole life. Hey, Chad, why are you running in the hallway? I don't know. I'll play your silly little game. Why am I? Chad, why'd you hit your buddy in the eye with a spitball? I don't know. I'll play your silly little... It is brilliant. I was thinking, man, my wife, when she thought I would have some kind of a fashion sense, and she'd say, are you really wearing that tonight? I don't know, I'll play your silly little game. I mean, it works for everything. I went back and thanked the guy. I did. I walked in, I said, I know you were meant to be a jerk, but I'm telling you, that's one of the funniest. I'm going to get some miles out of that. I was walking out, he says, you need to put these batteries back. Hey, guess who's not going to? I'll play your silly little game. I was driving down a road one time, and it was right after an ice storm in Casper, Wyoming, and I'm paying attention because they're building this building, and you know how they'll tarp them, and then they'll still lay block, and it's the middle of winter, and I'm just in awe of this building going up, and I look up, and the light is red. And there's no way I'm getting her shut down without going sideways. So I rolled through it right in front of a police officer that thankfully was holding back on his green light. Well, he lights me up, gets behind me. And this guy must have been having a day. Because he gets out, he's got his mirrored sunglasses on. He's tapping his gun like he's going to shoot the guy that just ran the stoplight in front of him. And he comes up, I roll down my window, he starts reading me the riot act. I mean, he's going on. And he's, is there any reason you ran that stoplight? I don't know, I'll play your silly little game, is there? You don't do that to a police officer. That's the wrong thing to say. Have you ever tried to tell them that you're just joking as they're putting handcuffs on? They don't just let you go. That was the day that I found out that the food in jail really wasn't that bad. And that's a story that I told, that my mom said, so you went to jail. So I changed it. And so I said, well, I really don't know what the food in jail tastes like, but my brother does. I thought it was funny because it's truth, Mom. Now I'm not lying. And then she was at a show and she heard that. She didn't like that.